Hey there, I'm Reverend Dan. We are Soul Evolution Collaborative, and this is Stripped Down Sunday, the place where we unchurch your Sunday experience. Welcome. This is a time for some inspiration, some spiritual upliftment, and hopefully a new take on life in a uniquely Soul Evolution Collaborative kind of way. We have Stripped Down Sunday mornings to offer you this streamlined yet powerful experience to bring an updated message of inspiration to the world at a time when it seems like we all might need it the most. Soul Evolution Collaborative is dedicated to personal transformation and communal evolution. So 2 quick things before we jump in. Everything you could want to know about this community, what we believe, and how to get involved can be found at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. So feel free to pop that open in another tab and poke around as we're here, or check it out later, whatever works for you. And second, we are creative. We are creating and actively encouraging change in the world in ways that benefit everyone, inspiring personal transformation that leads to communal evolution and a world with room for everyone. And so please help continue this vision by making a donation at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. There is a donate button in the menu. It's super easy, and we gratefully welcome all of your support. So let's jump in. This month is an interesting one because it's one that I'm finding very fun, but it is one that might poke a few buttons, which I don't know that we usually do. But the topic this month is just so timely. It touches on a lot of hot topic kind of ideas and really deep-seated values, things that as a country, as a society, we have really held on to and valued and highly regarded. And so the theme this month is success and other lies we've been told. So right off the bat, we are kind of poking that button that is success. That success is this thing we should all be after. What if that's not the thing? What if that's not the goal? What if success is not the milestone that we all need to be reaching for? What is success? How do you actually define success? What does success really look like? And when we have ample evidence from people who are and have been successful that success ain't it, what do we do? But it's way easier to just kind of put our blinders on and keep going because this is the norm. This is the way it's always been. So let's keep doing it. Success is the goal, and we're all kind of marching towards it, right? So the theme this week, is, what is the theme this week? The theme this week is we are exposing the lie of exhaustion as a status symbol. It is a lie. Exhaustion as a status symbol is a lie, and yet it may not be something that we hear being spoken, and yet it is quite apparent that this idea, that exhaustion is almost held as a highly regarded value, because if you are, we have found, at least in the United States, and it may not be true for every single one of us, but as a whole, this certainly seems to be the norm. If you are exhausted, then you are clearly doing all of the things. You're putting all of your energy towards success. Whether that's actually true or not may not really matter. But if you're exhausted, you're important. If you're exhausted, you're in high demand. If you're exhausted, you are striving to be successful. And success is the goal. So everyone else needs to know and see that we are striving for success. Right? Yeah. So if we're under this, I don't know, if we are all operating in this idea that success is the thing, and yet success does not really get us the things we are looking for, right? Like success is supposed to offer us all of the solutions to anything we could possibly want. Whatever it is that you are desiring in life, success is the solution. That's the system that we are all a part of. That's what it says. The system here in the United States says success is the solution. Work more, work harder, work longer, earn more money. And then once you do that, then all of the issues in your life, all of the challenges will be solved by essentially the money you make. And so it doesn't matter if you're totally burnt out now, if you're totally overworked now, if you have no time for family or relationships or friends or anything other than work now, it doesn't matter now, because once you get to that point of success, then you will have all of the money that you need to be happy and satisfied and content. And well, apparently that's just not true. That money, while money certainly does to a certain extent get us the things that we need to be comfortable in life, in excess, more than that, it seems, does not actually get us those things, because being comfortable and content is the baseline. We're looking at that as the goal, but that's actually the baseline. That's zero. We've just been encouraged to believe in a system that thinks certain things that are life dependent, like food and shelter, are things that we need to pay for, that can be profitable, that can be marketed, that we should need more and more and more of. And so when we have to work for our basic survival needs, that raises that point, that what is zero, that increases that to this place out in front of us, this goal that we now have to reach. We have to be successful enough to survive, which, when you look at humanity, from a humanities perspective, when we look at the idea of survival, that kind of starts to sound insane. Like having to pay for water, having to pay for food, having to pay for shelter. These are like the basic of basic survival needs. And yet, I don't know that I had ever really questioned a whole lot the idea of paying for food. We've always bought groceries. We've always had a water bill. We've always had, a mortgage or rent or whatever. Like, what does that say about the world that we're living in? And then what else? What other needs, like literal basic human needs that we have, may at some point have an expense attached to them that we would have to pay for these things. And so as we look at this lie of exhaustion, one of the things that has come up this week several times already in conversation, for us as ministers, it's come up in conversation in the community. Pause for suspense. Is this idea that, well, the question first is, well, what do we do? How do we change that? It seems like there's nothing we can do. What do each of us as individuals, what can we do? And the immediate answer seems like it would be nothing. It seems like, well, there's nothing that we can do, because this is the system that we live in. This is the system of American society, of the United States, is this. And history has shown us that it only becomes more entrenched in this idea. And what is it that we can do? How do we break this cycle? How do we get out of this? How do we make a change? And the answer really is not nothing. There actually are things we can do. And the biggest answer is to start caring for other people. And this, I think, is another one of these buttons, because it's like so many of us are like, I care about other people. Everyone else might not, but I do. I care for other people. So, well, that doesn't help, because I'm already caring for other people. And I think this is introducing to us, actually, a new level of caring for other people. because we might care about other people, but are we actually caring for people? Do we actually care for people? And so here's the other side of this. Traditional New Thought teachings, and certainly traditionally in the science of mind, the solution to everything is the individual's consciousness. I can't do anything for you. Only you can change you, and only you can change your consciousness to change your situation. And while in some part I agree with that we are each responsible for our own awareness of our situation and the thoughts and the beliefs and all of that. Like, yes, we do have the ability to have new thoughts, to have new beliefs, to create a new way of being, and that doing that attracts a new situation. It might bring into our lives new people, might bring new opportunities, whatever. And we are at a point in time where the privilege that the traditional perspective brought us, where everybody can just change their thinking and their whole life changes. Well, throughout history, at least recent history, that was really only available in reality to a very privileged group of people who had the opportunity to live in a way where changing a thought, changing a belief did actually change the thing they didn't like about their life. And this idea stems from a really great place of self-empowerment. Let's empower ourselves. We being part of the all that there is, we do have within us this ability to co-create a new reality, a new opportunity, a new way of being, a new possibilities. And I think we have swung that so far in one direction that it negates the life experience and the reality of many, many people, many more than have that privileged opportunity to put that into place. And I think the number of people that privilege is available to is shrinking very quickly. And what has happened is, I think in the shrinking of that number of people, there is kind of this, we as a teaching have taken this stance of like doubling down, like, no, it's absolutely true. Your consciousness, it's up to you. And it is from this perspective of here we are again, the rugged individual and self-reliance, and you as an individual, like there is this importance on the individual, which is correct from a certain standpoint up to a certain point, right? That yes, we are each responsible for that which we should be responsible for. Whereas rugged individualism asks you to take personal responsibility for much more than is yours to actually take responsibility for. And we've called that normal. 150% of your issue, your responsibility. What if we switch that? What if we change that to 100% of your experience is your responsibility, how you react to, or of your experience, your reactions are 100% your responsibility. How you decide to respond to the situation you're in. But the situation you were born into, the situation you find yourself in, there is a whole lot more to do. That has a whole lot more to do with the collective unconscious of all of life than it does you as an individual. So is it our job to weed through all of those default decisions and ideas and things that have been passed on to us? Yes. Is it our responsibility to solely take on everything that is out in front of us in the world? No, absolutely not. And we are not at a time where that even seems possible. Maybe it's not possible. There was a time where maybe maybe we could each work really, really hard and get ourselves out of the situation we're in, maybe, and strive for that success. But we're at a time now where you might say life is trying to show us that that's really not the thing. That's actually not possible. It is not possible for every single one of us to do that thing, that you have to have a privileged starting point at this point in history for that to be true for you. All right, so how does this tie into caring for each other? So, in conversation the other night, we were talking about this, and when the question of like, well, what do we do? Because it seems like there's nothing to do, the idea that specifically within the idea of exhaustion as a status symbol, the idea of self care came up. And self care is super important. And from the perspective of the problem, that seems like a great answer, right? That idea that you'll never actually solve a problem from the consciousness or from the place of awareness that caused the problem. So most of the answers where we kind of reach for are within this same framework that caused it. And so it just perpetuates the thing from a slightly different angle. So self-care, huge buzzword right now, maybe another one of those buttons we're poking at. Self-care, as we kind of know it in general now, is usually actually aftercare. I'm going to run myself into the ground. And when I realize if I realize I'm exhausted, I'll go to the spa and get pampered and get a massage or take a day, personal day, whatever, right? Like any of the things that come to mind, I would think, usually, at least for me, the things that come to mind when I think self-care tend to be those aftercare kind of things. Now, there are pieces of self-care that are, I think, way more important than that, like setting boundaries. But boundaries are important, yes. When it goes too far, when we are not caring for each other so much so that bosses can run their employees ragged and either not notice or not care, then boundaries as self-care is still aftercare because we're not caring enough about other people that were in this situation in the first place. Boundary is a band-aid in that case, right? And so we kind of got into this conversation, and I've thought about it more since, that not caring leads to situations where self-care becomes way more important. But in reality, self-care, the way we have encompassed it, is actually aftercare, which important too. Like we do need those days off after working hard. There are times where we will need to work hard. And so aftercare is important. And when we get better at recognizing the times that we need to take that time for ourselves, the easier that gets. However, all of that is needed right now more than it might need to be in the ideal scenario because we have a society that is not taught, that does not teach us to care about and to care for other people. And so our society says you as an individual are so important. Now, individualism, yes, important, but individualism so important that we bulldoze through other people or climb up over other people or stop caring about other people might be a little too far, right? So when we have a scenario where we don't need to care about other people and success is the goal, we get to exploit people left and right, and it's totally, in this system of values, it's totally fine because look at them, they're really going at it, they're going for success, they're going to make it. Hello. Which, when we kind of take the step back, I mean, it's all a little crazy. And so the solution of caring for other people, if we look at it like, all right, so what we think of self-care is really aftercare. Real self-care actually happens as and in community. Self-care happens in community. As a community, we can start to care for one another. And that can look like a whole lot of different things. That can look like people in positions of power or leadership at work caring for the existence of the people that are working for or with them. As a leader, do you care about the well-being of the people you're working with? Or are we running people into the ground, running them ragged into burnout and turnover and just bringing on somebody new? Amazon, for example, by the year 2024, will have burnt through their entire population of available workers. Just in time, they are predicting just in time for the advent of robotic technology to take over their warehouses. They are the way of working is systemically created in this case to just burn people out, work them so hard for this very short period of time, burn them out. They leave, and they bring in somebody else. Clearly not a place of caring about other people. What would it look like in that case if Amazon as a whole decided to care about its employees? And anywhere that I've read or listened or I hesitate to say researched, I am searching again other people's information. And that information says that when we care about our employees, when we provide good situations for them to work in, when we provide a very humane way of being at work, that not only do those companies save money on hiring and rehiring and training and just general turnover, but the employees there are way more productive. They're way more these reports usually say happy. I mean, that's we've talked about happy before and the chase of happiness, but they're much more happy in general. And so the companies do better. The companies are more productive. The companies have greater relationships with customers. The list goes on. And so from that perspective of just caring for people that we work with, and I suppose this can go in both directions, but certainly for people in those positions of leadership, caring about the people that work with you. Now, this goes way further than just work. This goes into every aspect of living, right? We are each in a situation currently where everyone is supposed to have their very nuclear family is supposed to have its own car, its own house, its own whatever. Everybody has to have all of the things because that's what success looks like. Well, no, that's what capitalism looks like, right? That's how we get everyone to continue needing and buying more. And it keeps each of us in that track of being that self-reliant individual who's going to go and keep going and more and be successful. But how much easier might life be if we didn't each need all of those things? If we could, a lot of us live in communities, whether that's suburban communities, whether that's high-rise communities, whether that's communities that are spread out by miles. There is a community around us. We're kind of set up for it in a lot of ways. What if within those communities, what if we actually got to know each other and created things like communal gardens? Heck, we could share tools. We could have community cars. I mean, there's so many things that could happen within a close-knit community where instead of needing 20 houses for 20 families and 40 cars and 20 or 40 or whatever of all of the other things, we could certainly reduce the need for all of those other things. And we could continue this further and think, heck, man, for 20 families, You don't even need 20 houses. But this is where it gets really interesting. And this is another one of those buttons that success tells us you need a house. You're not successful unless you have a house. It just feels gross even saying it in a way. What's fascinating about this is when we realize that not having the things that success tells us we should have looks like failure. That looks like being poor. That looks like being whatever the judgment or judgments that we've grown up with, that I've grown up with, that say to not have the things that success tells us we should have is failure. And then success goes and spotlights all of those groups that don't live in the way that success says we should live. Well, if you're not successful, you're going to look like that. You don't want that. That's failure. And in many cases, the system has set up scenarios where for those groups of people, it is that much more challenging to even start to reach for success that there's no use and they stay there. For other groups, that's what community looks like in other places. And so when you take community from other places and the juxtaposition of that culture on Americanized United States version of success, it looks like failure. It looks like being poor. It looks like X, Y, and Z of all of these other things that we're supposed to not, we definitely need to stay away from. That's looking like that is bad. And yet in reality, what if not every family needed its own house? Certainly every family needs its own living space. What if we started living together in extended families or with groups of friends and friends' families? Or there's so many opportunities and possibilities here. What if we all started having communal meals, cooking the food we grew in our communal garden? What if we, and the sharing of all of the bills and all of the things now all of a sudden totally changes when we have this mindset of caring for each other. Because then community becomes this safety net where if one person if one person has to be responsible for everybody, for everything, one person essentially has to become an entire community. But when that responsibility is removed and you're responsible for one or two things along with somebody else, now you have one or two or three people being responsible for one or two things and another one or two people being responsible for this other thing. And collectively, we're kind of all responsible for everything. The whole thing shifts. Because self-care happens in community. Caring for oneself is not actually possible until we're in some version of community that cares for and tends to each other. And then we get to make changes that actually impact, like, we don't have to run ourselves into the ground for this status symbol of success because so many more things become available. And this is just one painted picture. This is just one option, one idea. There's probably infinite versions of this or other ideas where caring for each other, not just caring about people, but caring for people, creates opportunity and possibility immediately to start breaking out of that system when we kind of have the courage to do that. So certainly a lot of potential buttons being poked here. And I think that this month I don't think we set out to do this intentionally. We did not set out intentionally to do this. But kind of realizing how many buttons we all have on this topic this month, success and other lies we've been told. We have a lot of buttons as a collective and as individuals. We have a lot of buttons. We tend to have a lot of buttons around this topic, topic of success, because it gets so wrapped up in our identity. And perhaps we have come to believe that my individuality is so important to my identity that to even strive for communal anything would take away from my identity, would take away from my individuality, that we can't have individuality in community, which I guess is a whole other lie. Community actually uplifts and amplifies the individual. We have so much more of an important place in community than we do just in the world as self-reliant, go-get-em individuals. So I know this certainly is not the end of this conversation, and I'm sure it has raised way more questions and thoughts to ponder and kind of mull around than it has actually provided answers. But just creating a new framework that even mildly provides off-ramps from the system we're in. Hopefully that is helpful to you. If for no one else, it's been helpful for me. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in. So I know we always love doing this on Sundays. We're glad you are here. And we, of course, will be back next Sunday with the continuation of this conversation, really, with a new twist with next week's topic, but success and other lies we've been told. More next week. We'll see you then.